from what was circulated?
I saw none, so I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Very good. Any abstentions? Moving, we have no old items. We do have 3 new items. Item number 1, application for zoning amendment ZA-09-2025, submitted by the City of Findlay to add section 1161.16, donation bins to the Findlay zoning code to create clear rules for the growing number of clothing donation bins. CPC staff comments.
Okay. So for the donation bins, the idea behind this was to create clear rules for the growing number of clothing donation bins placed in parking lots around the city. This gives us permit and authorization. Bin operator must obtain a city permit and written consent from the property owner. Placement, bins must be located, or bins are limited to the side or the rear of the building, and must meet the setback and visibility standards for operations and upkeep. Identification, contact info, and regular servicing is required. Violations will be subject to removal. And then for local exemptions, churches and local charities may place bins on their own property under these simplified rules. I guess I won't read through the whole text amendment since they were distributed prior, but I guess in terms of our staff recommendation, we recommend approval.
Very good. Engineering and fire prevention had no comments on any of the items this morning. So staff recommends approval of application for zoning amendment ZA-09-2025 submitted by the City of Findlay to add section 1161.16 donation bins to the City of Findlay zoning code to create clear rules for the growing number of clothing donation bins. So I'll just comment on this briefly. So this was something that I requested be brought forward. As you have probably seen, driving around the city, these donation bins have kind of popped up all over the place, especially over the last year. And we feel that there's a couple of things going on. One, some of the property owners may not even be aware because they are, kind of commercial ownership or maybe out of community ownership. We felt that they are really cluttering certain areas of town, that they're not being maintained super well. And so looking at how other communities are handling this, how do we make sure that they are both, available for donations, but making sure that our community is tidy. You'll see kind of all of the proposals this morning are just really trying to raise the bar for our community standards in cleanliness, community aesthetics, and overall just kind of, I guess, cleanliness and aesthetics, but, just overall standards for our community. So as the standards state, people will be able to keep them, but we need to have information on who's responsible for them in the event that they are, not being maintained. And we also want proof that the owners are aware that these bins are being placed on their properties. And then in areas where they are approved, they need to be next to a building or kind of up near the building rather than along the street, again, just for kind of sight lines and cleanliness. So discussion on this request.
Couple of things. Under what you just read, Jacob, where you say churches and local charities under simplified rules, what do you mean by those simplified rules? What you're simply stating right above that?
So
I don't think your microphone's on now.
So the exemption is for religious and charitable organizations if the bins serve the purpose of that organization, and if the bin is located on their property.
Right.
So Church A could not have a bin on Tiffin Avenue. They could have a bin located on their property, but they still have to follow the placement standards.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that, yeah.
Sure.
That was one of the questions I had. That 116116.6, the exemption number 2, the donation bin is used exclusively to serve the purposes of that organization. That seems kind of vague. If you could help me understand what's meant by that.
It's like Goodwill or Salvation Army. If it is literally just one of their collection sites on their property, they don't have to do as much of the paperwork.
Well, I understand what the exemption would be, but the donation bin is used exclusively to serve the purposes of that organization. So if I'm a church, that doesn't feel like that falls in. The bin does not exclusively serve the purposes of that organization. The purposes of a church is not to take clothing donations. You could argue Salvation and Goodwill, that is the main
Well,
purpose of that
the
organization.
church is addressed under item 1 rather than item 2.
No,
I
they
would
need
say, I
all-
mean, if the
they
church
need all
has-
3 of these. They need to meet all 3 of these categories, correct? Any donation bin that meets all of the following conditions, not one of the following conditions,
that-
just
Sure.
all 3.
So, I don't think it's far-fetched to think that a church is collecting coats to then redistribute to folks who need that. So, I think if a church had like an electronic collection bin, you might say, well, I don't know how that. I mean, there is some gray area there.
Yeah, and
But-
that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, what is the intent of that number 2? Is it just to make sure that there's not a charity that's collecting
Or
coats that doesn't? Yeah,
I
maybe
think
walk
it's.
through it.
I think the purpose of it is not to have the churches be the location of third-party donation bins that just simply use their property, come in, empty it once a
okay.
month.
So it's less of what the charitable organization or the church's mission is. It's more of you want it owned by the
Correct.
organization that it's their property, right? So
Yeah.
if it's whatever church, it's their donation bin. Okay.
Are we seeing donation bins that are not operated by charities in town?
We have no idea.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
don't know.
I mean,
That's part of the problem,
that's part of, if you search donation bins and try to do a deep dive on the internet, you will find some articles that kind of allude to that they're not sure where this clothing's going to, or if it's being resold for profit. There's a potentially seedy side to some of these donation bins. And so, this will help us. One, if a donation bin is overflowing, we have no idea who to call.
Right.
Right. Right.
We see donation bins pop up all the time on essentially abandoned properties.
Oh.
The one I can think of, I believe I believe like on North Main Street, the gas station that's no longer in use, the property owners are out of Illinois. There's donation bins on the property. And who do we contact? We contact the property owner. They have no idea whose it is.
Yeah. That's a problem.
And so we want to, one, make sure that the property owner is aware and gives permission. Two, if there's issues, who do we call? And then 3, get them located in a less prominent area rather than just all along the roadways.
Okay.
I would recommend, subject to others' thoughts, more clearly stating that number 2. It sounds like the intent is that the donation bin is used exclusively for that organization, not to serve the purposes of that organization. Just it's owned by the organization, owned or operated by that organization, something like that. It sounds like that's more the intent, that you don't want a church just saying, hey, let's have a whole bunch of third-party donation bins out here and then running into the same problem. That would be my thoughts. Because as I read that originally, that was just unclear.
I think that would be fine. The exemption was actually the time that I spent the most time wordsmithing. It just every version, it's like this doesn't always hit the mark. So, the donation bin is owned and operated by that organization. Some version
Something
of that.
like that.
I'll wordsmith it, but I think that I agree with Carrie that clearly kind of states the intent.
And then you've got shall be permitted only in C2 or I2 zoning districts. So I know there's a lot of churches that are in like R1.
Yeah.
So that would be excluded. They would not be allowed to have donation bins. Oh, sorry. Shall be permitted in any zoning
Correct.
category. Okay,
I-
so that covers. Okay,
I knew that was in there. I was just
Yep.
looking for where it
Oh,
was.
no, that's
that-
fine.
yeah.
Okay, I missed it. Thank you.
Part of the simplified rules.
Yep. Yep.
Oh.
We're good. That was only my questions.
So what we're saying is we would like to see a modification to section 1161.16.6 under exemptions. A1, most likely a modification to clarify that the donation bin is owned or operated by a religious or charitable organization. But my concern would be on, like, it needs to specify it's on their own property.
It's number 3, though. The donation bin is located on the property that is owned or leased by that organization.
Okay, so the owned or operated should, Councilman Russell?
Grant Russell, Findlay City Council. 1161.16.6 is a three-way test.
Yep.
And it says exactly what you are saying. And we did wordsmith this during planning and zoning a lot. And the big part is that it says that it's on the property that is owned, or it's got to be that organization's property. It's got to benefit that organization, the people whose property it's on, it's got to benefit that organization, and it has to be religious or charitable.
It's got to be your bin on your property.
Your bin on your property
Yep.
benefiting you.
Yep.
So it can't be Church ABC on their property benefiting the People's Fund. Because that's not they're collecting it for themselves. Now, I think you get into an issue if they're collecting coats and they're going to donate it to coats to our Coats for Christmas drive.
Yeah.
But then you're saying that Coats for Christmas drive is a outreach of their mission of the church. Done locally, that you can tell that where the product is, where the donation is going to. But I think the three-way test really states what you are trying to say. And as Matt said, we have wordsmithed the heck out of this. And at 10:30, this same document is going to planning and zoning. If we make changes here, those changes will have to. We're going to go through the process again, and so we'll be here in October in 2 weeks to do the whole thing again. I mean, we'll just simply at city or at planning and zoning, we'll just table it until it runs through the change again. And
I appreciate that you don't want to run through it again. I really do. Again, my feeling is I don't think we as the city should be evaluating or policing what they're using the clothing donations for. In my opinion, from a zoning perspective, if it's your bin on your property, you can collect them. In your charitable organization, that three-way test, that's good in my book. I don't think we should be having to look and see, well, what is it benefiting? Are you benefiting directly, or are you giving the coats to somebody else who's going to benefit? I think that leads to issues with enforcement.
Yeah, an example of that might be if they were shipping the clothing overseas or something to someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I would agree with Councilman Russell that that the three-way test that they have, or four-way test that we have right now, really does say, and I think because if you go to, well, let me take one step back. First of all, if we recommend changes from this commission, I don't think that we necessarily would have to table at planning and zoning and then come back. because we're just making recommendations to planning and zoning, and then it goes to council. So
And to that point, the official legislation will be drawn up after the results of these two meetings.
yeah, so
Okay.
we wouldn't need to do that again. I do, however, think that, again, that item 2, the donation bin is used exclusively to serve the purpose of that organization. Well, the purpose of a church is to serve the community or to serve others. So I think this is being broad enough. Zoning needs to be strict enough to address the issues we're experiencing and broad enough to have some administrative consideration, which is what this is. So we're not going to go around and say, oh, well, you donated those coats to Fostoria
Oh, I know.
rather than Hancock
Right.
County. And so I do think that the language as presented here is sufficient to address the concerns of who is it giving it, who is it serving? And again, it has to be on a local church, so that really helps address the issue of it just popping up somewhere randomly.
What, back up, where did you have that you could be in any zoning? I missed that.
It's in the introductory A. Shall meet the following conditions, shall be permitted in any zoning category, may
Next-
exceed
next
the
page.
permitted number of
Next page.
bins, and will not be charged a fee.
116116 at the bottom there. That's the exemption language.
Oh, down here?
Yep. Oh, it's on this.
Okay.
Yep, and that's only for the exempt.
Yeah, for the exemption,
A church that's in a neighborhood.
yeah.
Yep.
To Carrie's point about intent, point taken, well stated. You could remove item or number 2 there in its entirety, and you don't change the intent of this section because the bin must be owned by that charitable. Or if you change it, if you changed one to the bin is owned by the charitable religious organization. In other words, they're not leasing it.
Yeah.
And then you say it's on their property, so it's their bin on their property. Why do you care what it's being used for? If it's being used, if they're collecting electronics that they then sell in the used electronics market and use that money to fund their church operations, we don't care.
Great.
If they're collecting coats for Christmas, we don't care. But
Aluminum
it's
cans.
they own the bin. Yeah, aluminum cans is a good example. They own the bin. It's on their property.
It meets the design standards, the setbacks.
It meets our intent. That would
Correct.
be a very.
Yeah,
That's
I think that's a very clear change. I would be 100% supportive of that. Would you like me to make a motion?
I think so.
Actually, before making a motion, I wanted to bring up
Yeah.
one other
Oh, sorry.
question on it. I actually had two. The more straightforward one on 1161 16.4, when it talks about the 48 hours of primary contact to clean the bin. Would it be possible just to move that to 2 business days for those extremely rare situations like Thanksgiving, Christmas, where you might expect this to fill over? I don't expect the city to be really sticklers in those time, but 48 hours from like a Thursday when nobody can service it before the next week could be tricky for some organizations. Pretty simple one.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
And the last question I had on the enforcement and removal. On section C, it says the cost of removal may be assessed as a lien on the property. Is this something that we would be looking to pursue if somebody's out of state, out of town, or they just have an attractive location and people keep popping donation bins on there? Like in theory, could we just keep towing those away and assessing a lien to that property owner?
So, we, under the enforcement, I had several conversations with the law director, and
Okay.
he did research, and he felt comfortable with the final version of the enforcement. So, I mean, in your case, but yeah, I mean, is your concern that there's an attractive location and people keep putting bins there?
Yeah, like a low-hanging fruit, the abandoned gas station on Tiffin Avenue. Somebody locally owns it, uses it now and then for their own uses, but somebody sees that spot. Hey, I can collect free cell phones to resell on the used market. So somebody just keeps popping bins in there against the owner's wishes. Is that something then we would go remove it and then just assess a lien on that property, or would the owner have a form of recourse if they don't grant that permission?
If I was the owner, I'd take the bin to the landfill or the recycling center and get some cash for it. You know, if someone's putting illegal things on my property,
Yeah.
I think as a property owner, I have rights.
Right.
I think this is more when the property owner is ambivalent to it.
Okay.
Like, it's not my problem, it's not my bin, but it's on your property. So,
No, it is your problem.
And it
Yep.
states may be assessed on, so I think it,
Correct.
again, is kind of, I know it's frustrating that it is semi-vague, but, you know, we have to look at, okay, if we say, hey, we don't, yeah, you're not maintaining it, you know it's there, you've given consent, we have it documented, you gave consent, we're telling you there's a problem, and you're just like, well, too bad, then we need to be able to have some recourse to cover the costs that we incur for removing them.
Okay.
All right, I will make a motion to, I guess we're making a motion to approve a recommendation, right?
Yeah, it still goes to
Okay.
planning and zoning.
Still goes to planning and zoning. With the recommendation to strike 1161.16.6 number 2 and change 1161.16.61 to the, not a, religious or charitable organization.
And
what was that next part? The last part?
Change 1161.16.6 to say the donation bin is owned by the religious or charitable organization.
Okay.
and then also, would you be okay with including changing the 48 hours in section?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
11
thank you.
to 2
Thank you.
business days?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, so any other discussion?
Good.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to recommend approval of the updated zoning code for donation bins with the following adjustments. In 1161.16.6, item A2, strike that section. And in A1, change the donation bin is owned by the religious or charitable organization. And in section 1161.16.4 A or C, donation bins shall be emptied regularly and within 2 business days of the primary contact person being notified by any city official that the donation bin is full. With that, Jacob, whenever you're ready.
All right. Mayor Marin,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Trombley,
Aye.
Mr. Imbody,
Aye.
and Mr. Klinger.
Aye.
Very good. All right, moving to section or item 2, application for zoning amendment ZA-10-2025, submitted by the city of Findlay to change certain conditional uses in the Findlay zoning code. A, C2 district, fueling stations, oil change facilities, and small box retail stores to conditional use. And B, I1 light industrial district, self-storage facilities to conditional use. CPC staff discussion.
Okay. So these conditional use changes move certain high impact uses from permitted to conditional to allow case by case review and impose site specific conditions. So in the C2 district, fueling stations, oil change facilities, and small box retail stores will be moved into the conditional use section. And then in the I1 district, self-storage facilities move to the conditional use section. So I tried to, in my packet, pull the edits that Matt had and then remove the kind of strike-throughs. I noticed on my copy here, fueling stations is still not struck through. So on the screen, you'll see Matt has removed that from the permitted use section. And then if it scrolls down, fueling stations, oil change facilities, and small box retail stores are shown there. And then again, in the I-1 district, you'll see that it's just a simple addition there. So our recommendation was for approval.
Okay, so just a point of clarification. So on the second page, pawn shops and car washes, the committee recommended removing. So those were not
Correct.
recommended here. Just from a formatting standpoint, if we can make sure to capitalize consistently across, so my OCD, doesn't get triggered, that would be great. I'll comment on these. So again, these were items that I had requested. Just one of the challenges we see with zoning is that, folks come in and make requests and they meet kind of all of the standards that as a commission we can legally evaluate. However, from a community development management standpoint, I think we needed to have a little bit more flexibility. Making these conditional uses allow us to be able to have more input into where certain establishments go. We see, I'm all for the free market and we want to see development occur, but I also don't want fueling stations and oil changes on every single corner when those properties could be used for other things that may be conducive to the community and just overall, again, like aesthetics. And so we looked at a lot of other communities, and I felt like this was a way for us to, again, kind of just raise the standard of how we want our community to develop, while also giving us the ability to evaluate on a kind of case-by-case basis. So that was the intention of these proposed changes. Discussion. Any questions or concerns?
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
For higher intensity uses.
Yeah.
Fueling stations are a conditional use in C1. Will that stay in C1?
They are not, they have been removed.
They've been removed.
You may have an older version
Yeah, I
of the
know.
code.
I have a
As soon
very
as you
old
said that, I
version.
was like, no, that was a,
Okay.
Yeah, we changed that a while back.
yeah. So, yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation as written.
I'll second.
Just the one note. I will be adding a definition of small box retail. That's the one. It needs a definition. There's a pretty standard definition used by a lot of cities, but it essentially small box retail equates to dollar stores.
Is it just on a side, like a square footage?
It's it's based upon square footage, what they sell, and but yeah, I have a very good definition for it. I apologize for not having it here.
Another question, Matt. Moving the self-storage to conditional use in I-2, is that just so we have a little better control on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think self-storage, we've had such an explosion of self-storage. And I think this just gives us an opportunity to have a little more critical look at future self-storage.
Is self-storage permitted in
It's permitted in I-1.
I-1, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we'd be moving it from permitted in I-1 to conditional in I-1.
Okay.
I believe we had a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
All right. Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Trombley,
Aye.
Mr. Inbody,
Aye.
Mr. Klinger,
Aye.
and Mayor Marin.
Aye. All right, moving to item 3, application for zoning amendment ZA-11-2025 submitted by the City of Findlay to add section 1329 time limits for construction activity to the Findlay Building Code to establish clear framework to address stalled or incomplete projects. CPC staff comments.
Okay, so this section establishes a framework to address stalled or incomplete projects, so half-built structures don't linger. It sets up a completion timeline, which sets a reasonable maximum duration to reach substantial completion with administrative extensions for good cause. And then there's an enforcement mechanism, suspension and revocation of permits, performance guarantees, and abatement if necessary. And just to kind of beat the point, this would go in the building code rather than the zoning code.
Thank you. Yeah, so this was a similar request as we've been discussing. We will have complaints regularly come in that we're really not able to effectively address because we don't have some parameters. Now, what typically happens, and I'll just use examples so that folks are aware, is if a complaint comes in, we reach out and try to get them to address it, but we don't have really anything to point to hold folks accountable. As stated here, this gives us flexibility, and we regularly give extensions to people on all types of things, abatements of properties, cleanups of properties, but you have to have a reason why it is taking you longer and work with us to address that. So we want to be able to, when we drive through neighborhoods and you see a half constructed or half sided house or something that's just been sitting there for a while, this allows us to be able to work to get those maintained appropriately and not negatively impacting the neighborhood. So that is what this does. Questions or comments on the proposal?
Okay, one thing on 1329.03 where it says in item A, single family and duplex residential, should that also, I think that should include triplex or, obviously not multifamily housing, but there would be a lot of those situations, I think, that could come up, triplexes.
Well, I'll comment on that.
Okay.
I guess I'm fine with that change, but as it's written, it would just fall under multifamily.
Okay.
So it's not being left out. It would fall under a category.
Okay. Now this would be projects that only projects that require a permit. So painting of a house, siding of a house, those sort of things are not needing a permit. So you could have a house that's still got Tyvek on it for years, but I don't know that there's any way that we can handle that situation. But under construction of a facility or a house, that gives us some opportunity to have some enforcement then.
So, I would like Rob Feitner's input on that. I interpret it the same way, that it's for project. If there's no permit, I
Yeah.
don't know that we can follow this. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where the maintenance code discussion then came in, where, it says your house must be fully sealed and weatherproof.
Mm-hmm.
So when a house doesn't have siding on it for 20 years on one side, this section would not help any enforcement, but the maintenance code.
Okay.
Other questions or comments?
Yes, I had a question on 1329.03 for the time limits. So just kind of speaking from my experience working in the construction industry, we will frequently obtain permits long before we're ready to break ground just to get all our ducks in a row. Waiting on financing, or even on the commercial side, we have to obtain the city permits, zoning permits first, and then go through the Wood County hoops and loops that could sometimes take several months to get started. Would there be any opposition to changing the language from the construction shall be completed within 12 months of the permit issuance to the point of, say, footer inspection? When the city is out there for their initial inspection, that kind of sets a benchmark of when construction starts. And then in our houses specifically, we're 6 to 12 months depending on the size of the house. So I feel from that footer inspection, if it's not completed in that time frame, then there would be some other circumstance we would have to look at from the city.
I don't know. I guess my thought is this is also trying to stop, or not stop, but to put a time limit on when I can pull a permit, and as long as I don't start construction, I can have this permit be good from here indefinitely, right?
Mhm.
I think that's what we're trying to address as well, not just construction that's been started, but also permits that have been pulled. Because in that case, if that was the case from footer inspection, you could pull a permit and then not start construction for 5 years.
Well, we do have a timeline on how good the permit is.
Okay, that's already. How long is the permit good for?
A year.
A year.
And so that's what we do see is, yes, we do have a timeline there.
Okay.
And Kyle, you might know this. Do all projects with a permit, you building a house, a factory, et cetera, do they all have footer inspections?
Anything that has a foundation. So
Okay.
as this outlines it, minor alterations are non-structural. I would tend to believe that that would encompass the majority of projects that don't require a foundation. And sometimes the owner might not call in for a footer inspection. If they're going to overlook that rule, that's probably just a benefit they would forego for not following the rules.
Yeah, but this does talk about major renovations as well, where you may be doing significant construction on something that already has a footer. So I looked at this as, this is similar to our construction permits where, people again come in and say, oh, hey, we haven't begun construction, but here is why. It took us longer to close on the property, or we were waiting on Wood County. And we give extensions. And that's not a problem. It's really showing significant progress that is the focus. Construction shall be completed.
So the zoning permit is good for 12 months. So you got to start construction within 12 months.
Correct.
Okay, but this is also saying you must now finish construction within 12 months as well. Am I reading that right?
In some, yeah.
Yeah.
This-
For
I
single-family
do agree with
duplex.
Kyle in that there is kind of an assumption in this that you pulled a permit and you're starting within a month or two. But, and we see good faith actors all the time. They pulled a permit and, as Kyle said, all the ducks get in a row. And 6 months later, they start construction.
Yeah.
So, in some ways, my only concern is if someone doesn't get the footer inspection. So maybe it's from the date of the date of the zoning permit or footer inspection. So if you forego the footer inspection, it defaults back to when you got the permit.
So language like from the date of footer inspection or permit issuance, the latter of the two? Something
Yeah.
to that effect?
Does zoning require footer inspections on residential?
Yes.
Okay.
If it's an addition or a new build, yeah.
Okay.
And it's specific on our permits that we issue. On the bottom, it says must contact the office within 48 hours prior to pouring the footer.
Okay. But you don't do any other inspections beyond that?
As Kyle could attest,
Yeah.
we go out there probably in the average of a build of a house probably 3 to 4 times. But that's we do a routine inspection
Okay.
of
Even
that
though
property.
we don't have a building code, you're doing those.
just to see what the progress of the build is.
Okay.
All the way until roofs completed, driveways are poured, sidewalks are completed.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but the intent of the zoning inspector performing inspections, you make sure that the footer is in place so that they met the setback that the code requires, not building code, but zoning.
Okay,
And then when
yeah.
it's framed up, you can measure the peak of the building to make sure you don't exceed the zoning's height limits.
Mm-hmm.
And then you wait till the site is complete to make sure your driveway zoning requirements are adhered to, but we're not inspecting the electrical or
Right,
how
yeah.
the studs were nailed together.
Correct.
Okay.
Great job.
Good.
So I'm fine with making the changes. I would say that it only needs to be the addition of the language or footer inspection, whichever is later, would only apply in A and B. We would leave C, minor alterations, and extension provisions, prolonged construction, that can all stay as is. Does that sound correct?
I like that. And the last item I had with that, going back to, we were talking about the lingering siding issues. While we're not really doing those building inspections in Findlay right now in residential, is there a way to add language to new residence permits that include substantial completion? And we can have a definition of substantial completion, including all the exterior components, your siding, roofing, shingles, and that would give the zoning enforcement officer a little bit of grit, at least for the new construction, not really helping with the minor alterations.
Okay, talk me through that again, Kyle.
Yeah, so adding some kind of language to new residential construction that includes the words substantial completion in there, and we can create a definition that highlights what we would consider substantial completion. That could be siding, roofing, anything that would aesthetically really detract from the neighborhood. So while we're not performing building inspections in the same sense as Wood County, our zoning enforcement officer has a little bit of grit to make sure that the siding projects don't stall.
Yeah, so I think because I think that would be a relatively significant change based off of the prior discussions, I would say let's not address that here today.
Okay.
But when we bring forward the kind of maintenance code discussion, I think that's probably from a legal standpoint where we should address it more. However, when we talk to the law director, if we want to then come back and make another amendment here, we certainly could.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I've got just one other general question, not about the language here, but does this retroactively apply? No. So if there's buildings right now that are already under construction, this will just apply point forward. Okay.
Yep, we had that discussion.
Just a few buildings I can think of that have been in construction for like 10 years.
Yes. And we probably
Walked
talked
in
about the
and
same
done.
building.
Yeah.
Yes.
Makes us twitchy. Yeah.
Clock starts today.
All right, so I will motion to approve the proposal for ZA 11-2025 with the amendments of in section 1329.03 section or item A and B, that it would read construction shall be completed. Okay, for A, construction shall be completed within 12 months of the date of permit issuance or footer inspection, whichever is later. And for B, construction shall be completed within 24 months of the date of permit issuance or footer inspection, whichever is later. Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that? Hearing none. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Trombley.
Aye.
Mr. Embody.
Aye.
Mr. Klinger.
Aye.
Mayor Mirren.
Aye.
And Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Very good. Seeing there are no other items on our agenda, this meeting of the City Planning Commission is adjourned. Thank you all. Good work, team. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you. I hope my questions weren't too out of line.
No.
You bring a good perspective.
Yeah.
Or nay.
I see.
You can say nay. You can absolutely.
Allow windmills in R1 districts. Hi. Wait, what?
Hang on now.
No, I appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, no, good.
You got a little lesson of the difference between the word may and shall. And you see that,